I'd like to bring in Akiva Eldar, who is a political analyst as well as a contributor to Haaretz. He joins us now live from Tel Aviv to discuss more on the hostage issue as well as other topics. Good evening to you, sir. It's a pleasure having you on. So Netanyahu seems fixated on pressing ahead with the military operation, but when you're seeing the continued and rising demands, not only from the families of the hostages, but also from a lot of Israelis calling on Netanyahu to get the hostages released and released alive, do you think that he'll reevaluate his stance and open up to another round of a truce and prisoner and hostage exchanges?
Well, I think that Netanyahu is actually haunted by his own story. His claim to fame, and this is what enabled him to launch his political career, is his brother, Jonathan Netanyahu, who was the commander of the Israeli unit that released the hostages in Entebbe in '96.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of his legacy, that you don't deal with terrorists, you don't negotiate with them. But then in 2011, what happened is that he put an unprecedented price tag for hostages. And this was the Shalit deal. He released more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, including Hamas militants, among them Yahya Sinwar. And when he was asked about it a few weeks ago in a press conference, he said that this is something that actually he was hinting that he regrets. Now, there are people in Israel who are blaming the members of the families, like Ruby Khan, that you just mentioned his name, and he's my friend and a neighbor, that they are actually selling Israel out to the Hamas. Because of this pressure, the Hamas is raising their price. And you can see even a camp in Israel that supporters of Netanyahu, mainly people from the Israeli radical right, that are suggesting that Netanyahu should ignore the pressure. And Netanyahu read today a letter from families of Israeli soldiers who lost their life in this war, calling him to pursue the war. And this is the legacy of their beloved children, sons, the soldiers. So actually what Netanyahu is doing, and this is something that he's doing very well, is dividing the Israeli society between those two camps. The camp of the family, so to speak, and the camp that calls to eliminate the Hamas and to pursue the war until we can declare victory.
Since you mentioned the Shalit deal, that was more than a decade ago, I want to bring up an article that you recently wrote in which you say that Israel's Gaza strategy, its unilateral strategy toward Gaza, will keep leading to disasters. Do you feel that once this conflict sort of moves into a next phase or is over, there could be a change in that? Or is that unlikely to happen under a Netanyahu or any other subsequent Israeli government?
Well, I think that Netanyahu is history. Netanyahu, there will be elections next year. Even his very close allies from the Likud realize that he has failed tremendously in his concept, his trust of the Hamas. Actually, he sees the Hamas is the enemy of my worst enemy. And the worst enemy is the Fatah, is the Palestinian Authority. So, and if you look at the New York Times story about Netanyahu's approach, the way he treated the information about the money that was channeled into the Hamas and has actually financed the October 7 operation, and he ignored it completely. Now I think that 80% of the Israelis believe that Netanyahu is not the solution of the conflict with the Palestinian and even with Hamas, that Netanyahu is the problem. And I think that also President Biden realized that. And it's just, he would like, of course, to keep this tragedy of both Israelis, because every day we also bury our soldiers as well as the Palestinian. It serves his personal interest. As long as we kill each other, the court and the Israeli public will save him from jail, because, you know, his trial, it's hard to believe, while we are talking, his trial is still going on.
It's interesting that you say that Joe Biden is beginning to see the Israeli prime minister under a different light. I believe there's a second, or not believe, the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is set to visit Israel soon. And defense officials are saying that he's going to really be pressing Israel in terms of getting a definitive or certain war milestones and make Israel stay committed to these milestones. I mean, do you think Israel is likely to fully cooperate during this visit?
I think that the message that the Secretary of Defense brought with him was that Israel does not have unlimited time and unlimited American support. The pressure on Israel to offer some strategy for the day after is growing. Netanyahu refuses to talk about. He keeps saying what he doesn't want. He said, I don't want a Hamastan, but I don't also want a Fatahstan in Gaza. And the American demand is to talk about a comprehensive deal at the end of this war that will include the hostages. Let's go back to the beginning of our discussion, that the comprehensive deal, and this is what the relatives of the hostages demand, is to give us an idea what is the end game and what will be a game changer for the families, for the soldiers. What does Israel really have in mind in order to declare victory? And victory includes bringing back, and you know, it's unbelievable. I just checked, the number of Israeli captives is 248 at the beginning. Mm-hmm. This is exactly the number of hostages in Entebbe in 76, 248. And Netanyahu needs to convince the Americans that he knows what he really wants. And nobody in Israel, even in his cabinet, knows what's in the back of his mind, how he wants to end this.
One final question to you, sir. Since you mentioned the war cabinet, do you feel that there is perhaps minor cracks beginning to show itself within the war cabinet, especially between Netanyahu and Benny Gantz?
Absolutely. I think that the cabinet is a fake combination that will not hold water more than a few weeks, maybe even a few days. Both Gantz and Eisenkot, former chief of staff, know the reality. They believe that there needs to be a political endgame, and they believe that Israel cannot afford to undermine its special relationship with the United States, with Egypt, with Jordan, and even with Turkey.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. Akiva Eldar, it's always a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.